It's that time of year again when we start looking forward to what we think will be the hottest trends in mountain biking for 2020. Will your prediction be on this list? You'll have to watch to find out. And before we get on with the show, remember that if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that little bell icon so that every time we upload a video, you will get a notification. Has there ever been a Future Trends video where we didn't mention geometry? Well, yet again, we reckon that geometry will continue to evolve in the mainstream market in 2020. 2019 saw the release of more long, low and slack bikes from the big brands and small players alike across the entire spectrum of pricing. Take the Caliber Sentry, one of the best value enduro bikes around, which has entirely contemporary geometry which should see you firing down these hills at warp speed. Then there's the downhill sled-like specialised enduro, which could be described as a mini downhill bike with the angles to suit. But it's not just the gravity set that will benefit. With the Olympics just round the corner, expect a slew of new full suspension XC bikes in 2020, and we'll stick our necks out and say that they'll be the most progressive yet. So our 2020 prediction is that what is almost ubiquitous will become ubiquitous. If we see any size large bikes released in 2020 with a reach of less than 460mm, whether it's trail, enduro or downhill, we'll eat our cycling helmets. Speaking of progressive XC bikes, 2020 will be the year we're almost certain that both punters and pros will commit to drop a life on their race bikes. Cross-country courses are continuing to get gnarlier, and with more progressive geometry, the bike's ability to go even faster down a hill means a dropper post will be the natural addition to any racing machine. We've seen increasing numbers in the World Cup already in 2019, but expect to see the majority of the field sporting uppy-downy seat posts in 2020. There's an old adage that XC races are won on the climbs and lost on the descents, so we're still perplexed as to why they've taken so long to become mainstream between the tapes. But if they're good enough for Nino, we're sure they're good enough for you. It's very easy to assume that bikes are getting more and more expensive as time goes on, and there's a fair reason to believe that. Halo models are now frequently touching five-figure sums, and with electronic group sets now readily available and new top-end forks expected in 2020, they're going to become even more prevalent and more expensive. However, fear not, because the more affordable bikes are very, very good, and in 2020 we're fairly sure the pocket-friendlier end of the market will be well served. This is thanks to the fabled trickle-down of technology, meaning base-level componentry today can be as good as top-end stuff only a few years ago. Fairly basic drivetrains and suspension all feel pretty good, and fortunately, more and more brands are realising that their entry-level bikes should also benefit from the advances we've seen in geometry in recent years. Take for example the Vitus Nucleus VR at £550. For the money you get a great air-sprung fork from SR Suntour, wide WTB rims and chunky Vigilante and Trail Boss tyres, and an up-to-date shape. Or, if full suspension takes your fancy, it's almost impossible to look past the Caliber Boss Nut, a perennial favourite at £1,100. The media naturally focuses on the latest and greatest models, but our promise to you, the BikeRadar audience, is that in 2020 we'll make sure to continue to cover as many great value bikes as we can. Love them or hate them, e-bikes aren't going away, and as with any new genre of bikes, 2020 will see a raft of new models, new components, and maybe even some divergence of what's on offer. While the general consensus seems to be bigger batteries with associated burlier bills to make the most of the power on offer, there's always been a proportion of e-bikes that seem to try and blur the line between analog bikes and their electric cousins. There are some systems, such as that from Fazua, that come with more subtle assistance, smaller batteries and consequentially lower weight, meaning a more natural feeling ride. They're also easier to remove, and we've seen bikes from the likes of Lapierre that are designed to be ridden with or without the motor and battery pack attached. So maybe 2020 will be the year of the in-betweener e-bike. In the heady days of the mid-2010s, fat bikes exploded onto the scene with a go anywhere, do anything marketing message that appealed to a broad subsect of the mountain biking population. Their super fat, super low pressure tyres opened up swathes of sand, snow and bog to the most adventurous of riders, and for the rest of us, heaps of undamped and bouncy riding. With 1x drivetrains, hardtail frames and rigid forks, their reliability was a major plus point, but also perhaps their downfall. After all, if there's minimal moving parts, there's minimal things to go wrong. Fat bikes are a rare sight these days, and only once in a blue moon do we now get press releases to BikeRadar for a new model. That's probably because if you wanted one, you've got one, and if you've got one, it'll still be rolling around. We reckon 2020 will draw to a close this underinflated, slightly unwieldy period of riding history. Unless, of course, you live in the desert or the Arctic, and we're sure you'll let us know about it in the comments. What do you think of our list? Did we get it right? Or should we have picked something else? As always, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and click the little bell icon so that every time we upload a video, you get a notification. Bye!